everyone, my name is Emily. You might remember me from some of our previous videos, but I am the art and design steward and an intern here at Launch Space. Alrighty, so today I'm going to be showing you how to do one half of the Quabbin landscape paint kit that we have in the store right now. In the kit you will get 2 canvases, 2 palettes, a set of brushes, one for each participant, assuming you're doing this with your partner, your special someone, a friend. You'll get a set of paints and then the optional tabletop easel. And also in this, just to let you all know, there are some other cool things that we have in the store and you should go check out. Amazing. So this is a 2 canvas landscape, assuming that you and someone else are each doing one, so that then they can be put together. In the directions, I go over the other half of the canvas, and so in the video, I wanted to paint the left side of the canvas so that you get a little bit of both. So if you are painting the right side, I would say reference this video for techniques and for the application if you're more of a visual learner. But in terms of the photos for like blocking out the colors, etc., that's included in the instructions. So, to begin, the first step, ooh, got some paint on me. The first step is going to be coating your canvas in white. So you get the full bottle of white along with all of the other colors. And so what I like to do is just kind of squeeze a bit out along the canvas because it'll take a fair amount of paint. And this is so that you're able to blend the colors a lot better once you start adding more to the canvas. So you just want to give it a nice little brush around with your 1-inch brush. Make sure that you coat the whole thing and cover each of the edges as well. Yeah. It's a little bit hard to see depending on your lighting, but grab a little bit of extra. All right. So then, and you're gonna want to have a paper towel with you. I'm just gonna be using the paper that I have on the table right now anyways to brush out the excess paint. But all you'll need is a paper towel as well. So to start the sky, what we're gonna do is mix a little bit of red. You wanna kind of tap it out on your brush. And then take a little bit of blue and the tiniest little smidge of black. So you get this nice like gray purple color. I'm gonna add a little bit more red because I want mine to be a little bit more of a berry kind of tone because it'll mix with the liquid white that's on the canvas. So then you want to tap it out. I'm gonna tap a little bit out on there. And then what you want to start doing is little X's. And the other thing too is you're gonna want to mirror everything that you do on the top, on the bottom. And the other thing too is the sky gets lighter the closer you get to the horizon, and then the lighter, or it gets lighter the closer you get to the horizon and to the sun. So the sun is setting on the other side of the canvas, so this top corner is going to be your darkest point, and this bottom corner over here will be your lightest point in relative to where the horizon is and where the sun is on the other canvas. And then you want to just mirror that on the bottom, and this will help us start to create the reflection of the water, because this abstract landscape is inspired by the Quabbin. Yeah. As you can see, there was a little bit an issue with getting the white all the way down, or not really an issue, but you can see how it's a little bit harder to blend on the parts that don't have the same amount of the white. So you just want to give yourself a nice little coat of everything. Yeah, that feels good to me. So now what you're gonna do is clean your brush. I'm gonna go grab, oh man, I have a paper towel. There they are. You want to grab your paper towel before you start. So you want to rinse out your brush, dry it off all nice, and then we're going to start blocking out where the mountains are. So what you want to do is mix up a sort of gray toned green. I'm going to take a little bit of the green, a little bit of white, tiny smidge of blue, tiny smidge of yellow, see what that gets me. Alrighty, that's really bright. So then I'm gonna take some red to dull it down. Then I'm gonna add a bit more white just for like the volume. And it's okay if they mix a little bit. There we go. Little tiny bit of black, maybe gray, and then do a bit more yellow because I want it to be more greeny. A little bit of blue. There we go, perfect. Okay, so you want to take your 1-inch brush, and we're going to start from the farthest point. So we're going to start with the big mountain in the back, and what you want to do is just kind of see, like, this is like about, let's say, a quarter of the way down the canvas. So then I'm going to just start to put in the idea of this mountain. And then you want to always be mirroring it on the bottom half of the canvas, so that when it comes time for us to put the water in, you have a really nice, reflection. So then you're gonna start swooping those down. And the nice part about this is because there is so much room for interpretation in a landscape, you can really take your time and layer and do a whole lot of fun stuff to get your landscape exactly how you want it, which is really fun and exciting. So there's the basic of that mountain. It's okay that one side is darker right now. We'll fix that as we go along. This side's going to get considerably darker. So here's that. And then I am going to go to the next plane, which is this mountain. So like I had said before, you want to be working from the farthest point away from you to the foreground, which is right down there. And so the next farthest away thing from the mountain in the very back is this second one that crosses over there, but then has this one, this peak, coming in front of it. So I'm gonna mix up a little bit more. And I'm gonna do just a little bit more saturated and more vibrant of a color, because the farther you get away from something, the less saturated it becomes. So then I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna block out the basic of where that peak is. And you could say instead of a quarter of the way down, the peak hits at about maybe a third, a little more than a third of the way down. So I'm gonna just block that in. And this mountain's a little bit more wavy than the back peak. So I'm just, right now, really all we're doing is making sure that we have the color in the reflection and the color on the canvas. You don't really have to worry about it being perfect. That's another beauty of the fact that these are abstract landscapes, is that you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, so there's that. Very basic, very sweet little mountain. All right, cool. Now we're gonna go to the next closest peak. I'm gonna make it a little bit brighter, just because I want to. And then this one goes about the same way, or about the same length down the canvas. And then I'm gonna just start tapping that one in and blend it out towards the bottom. And you also want to be doing this in reference to your partner's canvas as well, to ensure that your peaks match up, at least for this portion. So there's that about. And like I said before, we've got the green in the what will become water now. So the next step is to kind of start layering on the water. I'm gonna double check the wording that I used. All right, so now we're gonna take our smaller flat brush and we're gonna start layering values onto the canvas. So I'm gonna start with putting in what are sort of maybe trees, just a little bit of, now I'm just kind of mixing these two colors because I like the way that they turn into a really grayed out, really muted purple. I'm gonna start making these lines a little bit more defined, a little bit more stronger. One important part is that everything on the right side of your canvas is going to be lighter than, or whatever you have to imagine that the sun is over here. And so if the sun is over here, this side of the mountain, the left side of any peak or anything that you put in this canvas is going to be darker than the right side. And that's because if you were to imagine the sun would be shining and it would be brightening this side, it would be hitting the right side, and it would be casting a shadow, therefore, on the other side. So to create the illusion that this canvas is connected to the other, we want to mimic that. So I'm gonna just keep layering colors and layering various values on the canvas until I feel satisfied with the depth of color that is on here. Of course, this is a really personal project. You can do just about anything and it'll look great. which is really awesome. I'm really happy with the way that this landscape turned out. I am a painter, but I don't normally do stuff of this sort of style, this Bob Ross adjacent, if you will. So I had a lot of fun designing this, and I hope you all have a great time painting it. Also, don't forget to put a bit of the value that you have from before into the bottom. It really does not need to be perfect. It's just to ensure that we have what appears to be a reflection. So I'm gonna keep layering, and I will check back in with you all when it's time to keep going. So I'm starting to feel pretty good about the way that this is looking in terms of the base colors that I'm going to be on there. The key to this painting is that there is a lot of layering, so I know it doesn't look like much at the moment, but it will be. So now what you're going to do is take your dry 1-inch brush, and you're going to start from where the theoretical water line is and pull down. You want to just pull straight down and you want it to blur. And drag the color along the bottom of the canvas. And then what you're going to do is lightly swipe across this way, horizontally. And in doing that, you're going to begin to create this illusion of water. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of water to my brush so that I get a little bit more movement from the paint in terms of like where it is getting dragged down to on the canvas. And then you want to do the side-to-side motion. You can continue layering this as we go. You just want to start putting the basis in there, and you want it to really look like what's happening down here. So you have these alternating placements of color that are creating the illusion of a reflection and the way that it would move on the surface of the water. So now I'm going to go back to just continuing to layer, and I'm also going to start putting in the foreground, these trees in the front, that would be like closest to you and the first thing in your line of vision. Yeah, so I'm going to keep doing that, and I'll check in again when the next big change starts. Just continuing to mix this like nice purpley color, and I'm going to start dabbing in this right here. Want a bit more dark on this peak. You can really start playing with the way that different techniques change the texture on the canvas. It's a whole lot of fun. There's a lot of layering that happens. The one thing that I do suggest is whatever way you pick up the color, be it tapping. In this case, you want to then tap on the canvas. And I find that that just allows for the easiest deposit of color. But yeah. So I encourage you to experiment. I encourage you to really play around with what you can do with what will become the water. Yeah. I'm feeling good about where everything is at the moment. I'm going to start adding some more value to the sky. Once again, when you're doing the sky, much like when you're doing the rest of the painting, you really want to be aware of the fact that this is just half of the sunset. Adding a bit of water to my paintbrush, and then to the palette. Just starting to darken things, add a bit more color and saturation to the sides. I want it to be pretty wispy and through here. It's okay if you screw up the side of your mountain a little bit, just because we're gonna go in with a different technique to really outline everything, if you will. Add a bit of water to the canvas just to help me blend. And then I'm going to take the smaller brush, get into the smaller crevices. Alright. And I really like the look, as you can probably tell, of a number of like really small brush strokes that are adding texture and dimension to the painting. So to start doing that, I'm going to mix a bit of water in with like a really nice berry red color that I made just by doing mostly red with a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of black. And I'm going to just start adding some places wherein I want to layer more color. It looks a little crazy, but it'll look a little less crazy in a sec. I want to just keep adding. Okay, I'm good with that for now. I'm going to keep layering in here. And I like to really move around my canvas, but that's personal preference. I definitely encourage you to like really explore what you like doing in terms of your painting process. And see what works for you and what feels good and cool and fun for you to be doing with the way that you paint. So now we're going to start adding a bit more of these really fluid lines, I guess you could say, to the painting. So what you want to do for this is have a very water heavy round brush and take the smallest amount of various pigments and make like almost the texture of ink with the paint, so then you have the ability to move it in a much more fluid way across the canvas. So I'm going to start by outlining the shadowed side of this peak and just kind of let my brush do most of, if not all of the work, and start adding these very little spidery lines and filling out a lot of that. And that allows me to add yet another layer of texture and quality to this painting. So I'm going to add some more black to it because I think it's a little bit too watery for my liking. And I'm just going to go back in and just continue to fill out this farthest most shadowed place. Whew. All right, I'm going to continue doing that along this peak as well. painting on like the very side of the canvas and dragging it across to create the illusion that we're referencing the shadow that is not on the painting. And then we're going to do the same thing to the shadowed side of this piece. And like I said before, let your brush do most of the work so that you get these really interesting lines that have a very unique quality to them. Now I'm just kind of thickening that because I want to utilize that paint create yet another layer of paint on that side of that map. Okay. And going to also add that to this little tree. Once again, very lightly mirroring it, just to add that bit of dimension of fantastical nature to the painting. We're really getting into the part where this is very up to you and where you can continue to add and to layer however you'd like. You're going to just continue with the same sort of technique but using different colors. So now I want to play around with the highlights. I want to see what blocking out this will look like, what adding that pop will look like in that corner. Up sort of like a muted robin's egg sort of color, because I really love a like foggy blue-green, and I am going to add that as another one of these squiggly lines to brighten up the painting a little bit, have a little fun, layer some more color in. And I'm going to start bringing these onto both the mountains and the water. So I'm going to just start squiggling some lines in. I'm going to highlight the right side of this peak. All right, so the last step that I'm gonna go over is adding the final highlights. If you've gotten this far, you're probably pretty close. Yay! So, if you've made it this far, you're so close to finishing the painting. I just wanna go over one more little technique with you all. Once again, with a really watery paint and your tiny round brush, I like to add a bit of these like really painterly type lines around the trees, just to emphasize that they are trees. So I just sort of bubble them around. I like to pick up my brush partially through each stroke. Once again, as we've talked about before, just letting your brush do a majority of the work. Yeah, and then once you feel satisfied with that, I feel good about that. You're all done. And I hope you enjoyed the painting. Thank you for watching. Happy making, happy painting, and have a great day.